I call our June the 5th, 2017 County Commissioners meeting in order. It's customary for our board to start our meeting with a prayer and a pledge of allegiance, and I'd ask Ms. Barnes to lead us in the prayer, Mr. Outlaw to lead us in the pledge, and we generally stand for those that are able. Ms. Barnes?
Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, for this day that you've blessed us with. I thank you that we live in a country where we can celebrate religious freedom as well as political freedoms, Lord. And we just ask today that you would give us great wisdom and mercy, Lord, as we come together to make decisions for the best interests of our county, Lord. And I also ask that your hand of protection would be upon us, would be upon our military, our veterans, our public safety officers, as they put themselves in harm's way, Lord. And we just ask all these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Would you join me in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. We now have 4 sets of minutes to approve. If the commissioners have had time to look at those, I'd entertain a motion to approve all at one time if that's possible, or any corrections to any of the minutes at this time.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw, seconded by Ms. Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is a public comment session. And what that is for is to allow any of our citizens to bring any issue or any opportunity. We even take compliments once in a while to the board about any subject you wish. We do have a sign-up period out front, and I've had one sign-up this morning, which is a Viola Gray. Ms. Gray, are you here? Please come forward, give your name and address, and we'd be glad to hear from you. Good morning. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Viola Barnes Gray of the Down East Partnership for Children in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I reside at 305 Oakdale Road, Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So thank you so much for allowing me to briefly share on this morning. I am here to share information about the Twin Counties Partnership for Healthier Communities, an invitation to a leaders' luncheon, and the Twin Counties Health Summit on June 26th. I believe you have 2 of the flyers before you, and that's what we're going to be talking about very briefly. I'm here on behalf of the Twin Counties Partnership for Healthier Communities to share a brief background on the partnership, to highlight our current efforts, and certainly then to invite input as we move forward. The Twin Counties Partnership for Healthier Communities is a network of over 60 health and service organizations, of which our agency, the Down East Partnership for Children, is at the table. We're all dedicated to supporting a culture of health, wellness, and unity in our Twin Counties. The partnership was formed in 2015 and has 3 very different work groups. They are physical and behavioral health, active living, collaboration, communication, and community outreach is our 3rd health work group. In March of 2017, we conducted a community health survey in Edgecombe and Nash counties, which was a door-to-door survey. We asked our residents to share their opinions on what they felt most influenced the quality of life in their community and what type of health improvement programs they considered important. We also asked questions related to their daily nutrition, their physical activity, and access to health care. We are very happy to share that the sample of residents in both of these counties has produced some results that can be generalized in each of our counties as a whole. This means that the people that we interviewed are representative of our county's overall health. The survey was our first step to gather input from residents across our 2 counties to inform the partnership efforts as we go forward. The next step is to engage with our leaders and residents from across our counties then to share what we have learned from this survey with others and to share other surveys and assessments conducted by our partners who are at the table. We want to discuss how we can continue to move forward together to address the needs identified as a result of these surveys. We would like to invite you as leaders to our Leaders Luncheon on June 26th, that's a Monday, from 12 to 2:30 at the Booker T Theater in Rocky Mount. During this luncheon, we will share the results of the survey and engage in discussions about how we can continue to work together to address the needs as identified by our residents. We also invite you then on that same day, in the evening, from 6 to 8 p.m. to the theater as well, where we will continue our summit with our community members as we engage in additional conversations with them to increase our understanding of our health issues identified by the survey and to hear their thoughts on how we can continue to support health and wellness in our communities. I am leaving these flyers with you about both of these events. We do hope that you'll share them with leaders across the 2 counties, and we certainly invite you to please RSVP and be a part of this conversation at our luncheon, and certainly continuation of that at our community event that evening from 6 to 8 p.m. I thank you for allowing me this brief moment to share this health initiative. Are there any questions for myself? And if you have questions more deeply that I cannot answer, I do know a resource. On your flyer, you will see that Becky Copeland will be your point of contact to RSVP. The Leaders Luncheon, we're asking for RSVPs for the community members. They do not have to RSVP. We welcome them, but it certainly is come by choice. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ms.
Have a
Gay.
blessed day.
Any questions or comments? I think your presentation was very well done. We thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, I'm familiar with what she's talking about, and it's health issues are something that I think if we want to keep people out of the hospital and spending a lot of money, especially through Medicaid and Medicare, that we do need to concentrate on the issues here in the Twin Counties, health and have a more healthier society. And I think this is one step in that direction.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a
Pleased
wonderful
to have you this morning.
Thank you, sir.
We're now on item 6, which is the public hearing on Nash County's fiscal year 16-17, was what it says.
No,
I think it's-
17-18.
I think it actually is 17-18.
I'm a year behind.
Recommended budget. That's okay. We can catch up quickly. I'll call on, we're going to have a public hearing in just a moment, but first I'd call on our manager, Z. Lamb, for a presentation and a summary of the budget that this board, and particularly the staff, has worked very hard on over the last 3 months and really, quite frankly, probably over the last 3 years. But we're pleased to present that and get comments from the public this morning. Mr. Lamb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. At the last meeting, we did present the budget in full to you in open session on May the 15th. Since that time, a public hearing has been properly advertised for today, and the budget document has been available for review on both our website and in the clerk's office. For the purpose of this public hearing, I would like to just point out a few highlights of the proposed budget. It is a balanced budget totaling $90,307,834 in revenues and expenditures. This budget represents a 0.93% decrease from last year's original budget. The proposed ad valorem tax rate remains unchanged at 67 cents. This represents the 8th consecutive year that the tax rate has not increased. The since this was a reval year, we have in the budget ordinance, the revenue neutral rate for the county as well as for our fire districts. And the revenue neutral rate, when factoring in the average growth of the last 8 years of 1.2% and the reduction in value of about 1.2 to 1.4%, maybe 1.5%, the revenue neutral rate, according to the formula provided by the state, would have been 69.44 cents. So that's almost 2.5 cents higher than the rate we're recommending, which in effect, in the aggregate, means while the tax rate is staying the same, the revenue neutral rate would have been higher. There is one request among the 18 fire districts for a tax rate increase. Castelia Fire District is requesting a 0.5 cent increase from 7.35 cent to 7.85 cent, and that is included in the budget. The tax valuation estimate for FY 17-18 is $7,229 million, which due to revaluation is decreased from the current year. The budget does appropriate a total of $3.38 million from fund balance, which includes $1.8 million for the balancing factor. That figure had historically been 2.8 until the current year, and anticipating a worse reval than what occurred. Last year, we began we had the second year of a 3-year process to prepare for reval, and we decided to keep that balance and factor fund balance appropriated the same. Thus far, the 4 years I've been here, we have not needed to use that money due to increased revenues and not all appropriations being expended. We also are appropriating $1.4 million for one-time capital projects from fund balance and $176,000 from the health reserve. The budget also reflects a tiered cost of living adjustment based on the current salary for employees, which totals an increase of approximately $595,000 of county dollars and will be effective July 1. The state has also required us to increase the retirement contribution for employees and law enforcement, and that is costing the county $101,000. The commissioners, in its plan to provide veterans in this county the best services that we can provide them. Last year, they created a Veteran Service Office, a standalone with 1.5 employees. This year, they are expanding that to have 2 full-time employees, so there will be no gaps in coverage in the office. This county has over 8,000 veterans, and these 2 people will help them with their claims and benefit needs. An increase, the commissioners also chose to add an additional EMS station in Middlesex. So the budget reflects a $305,000 increase for 6 additional emergency service personnel to staff that EMS station in the Middlesex area. We also have an increase of $500,000 in additional sales tax revenue. That's due to the Article 44 tax that was approved in the 2016 session of the General Assembly. history so far has it that we're going to get about 625 this year in that new sales tax. And I'll have a recommendation for that. It has to be used for education, economic development, or community colleges. However, the budget does reflect a decrease of $2.2 million in social services due to, effective September 1, the elimination of 2 pass-through programs. Actually, one of those programs have already been eliminated, I believe, the transportation, but the daycare will, instead of coming to the county and then to providers, will go directly from the state to providers. That was supposed to happen a year ago. It was postponed. It was postponed till July 1. Now it's been postponed to September 1. If for any reason the state is not prepared on that date, we can do budget amendments, but it's basically a pass-through. We will get every dollar we have to spend. Finally, the budget also includes a $95,000 increase for current expense for Nash Community College and a 25% increase for their capital projects to focus on security and a new camera system on the campus. You will note that the budget ordinance in the agenda has been updated since May 15th to include the calculated revenue neutral rates for Nash County and the fire districts. It didn't have the fire districts in there last time, but we inquired and we were told that we had to also provide and publish the revenue neutral rates for the fire districts.
Hadn't heard that one before.
Yeah. As you know, at the end of the public hearing, the board may adopt the budget as presented, make amendments, and then adopt the budget, or table the adoption until a later date. However, the budget must be adopted by July 1 of this year. I would request that you adopt the budget today as you have during each of the last 3 years after the public hearing. As you know, the budget can be amended at any time. I realize there are some requests that have been circulating. I believe those requests can be absorbed in our current budget as proposed due to lapsed salaries and other line items that can help take care of those things, those expenditures. As I've discussed with several of you at the next meeting, I will recommend that the new Article 44 sales tax revenues will be reserved to begin a fund. Since we're going to self-fund the early college, I'm going to recommend, as you have done each of the last few years, reserve funds due to high revenues, and so that will occur at the next meeting. I also want the board to know that I do plan to meet with the schools, and I'll include some commissioners if I can get that meeting, and talk about a long-range plan for furthering the increase in the supplements that the commissioners began 3 years ago, raising the supplements from 6% to a minimum of 10% for all classroom teachers. At this time, I will be happy to answer any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Any questions that the board may have of Mr. Lamb this time?
Yes, I had,
Belfield?
Mr. Chairman, I had mentioned to you and the county manager about not leaving the school system budget flat, and had recommended $100,000.
Mr. Belfield, if you don't mind, I'd like to conduct our public hearing and then, after the public hearing, discuss comments about the budget
Okay.
itself.
That's fine.
Okay, all right. Any questions of the presentation itself?
No.
The only thing I would say, Mr. Lamb, is you used the word high revenue, which I've never heard before in my life. I think it's increasing revenue.
Increasing revenue, okay.
I don't think we've ever had high revenue in our area, but that would be a nice problem to have. At this time, I would entertain a motion from the, well, first to make sure the public understands where we are. At this time, we're going to have a public hearing to allow any citizen to come forward and give us your ideas on the budget. If you have any issues with the budget, opportunities for us to improve the budget, we would certainly like to hear from you. It's somewhat disappointing to this commissioner, and maybe not the rest of them, but I think all of the board, to not have some public participation in this process, and this is your time to do that. But at this time, I'd entertain a motion from someone on the board to go into public hearing.
Move that we go into public hearing.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Richardson, a second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Ladies and gentlemen, we are in public hearing at this time. If you do wish to speak, we'd ask you to come forward, if able, and give us your name, address, and we'd be tickled to death to hear from you. Ken, you raised your hand. You got a mic, so you can stay right where you are, sir.
Okay, Ken Ripley, Spring Hope. I have three things. One, on behalf of the Spring Hope Library, I wanted to thank the county administrator for adding $500 into our budget for this coming year. If you all approve it, that will immediately go to our books, which had been shrinking. So thank you very much. I wanted to commend you for two other things. One, for the Middlesex Station on behalf of Southern Nash County. That's a very far-sighted move, and thank you. And to strongly commend you for including in your budget a retail developer, which we still have to report in fully, and I'll write about it, but that's badly needed, and it fills a gap in our economic development that we've had for some time, and I just wanted to commend you all very much for including that in your budget.
Thank you, Mr. Ripley. We greatly appreciate those comments, and this board was unanimous in all three of those items. They are sorely needed, and it is a continued process for us to help the southern part of Nash County to return back to Nash County and understand they are indeed a part of Nash County. So I hope those efforts have shown up over the last 7 or 8 years. We're tickled to do it. Anyone else wish to speak on the budget? I guess the manager has instructed the department heads not to say anything about the budget this morning.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw, second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? For the board, Mr. Lamb has stated it very well. I'm going to restate it. At this time, we have three options. We can approve the budget as submitted by staff. We can amend that budget with a majority vote on any item that any commissioner wishes to bring forward, or we can table the matter until our June the 19th meeting if we feel like we've got more work to do than what we can accomplish this morning. I did pick up, listening to Mr. Lamb, that it was his desire to approve the budget today, but we do have another scheduled meeting in June that gives us a chance to do it if this board so chooses. And Mr. Bellfield, I'll start with you. Been hopefully kindly interrupted you a while ago, but any comments you have, please bring it to us.
Oh, yes, I'll go back to our school system. I've been reading a lot of, well, I guess you can call it inadequate, not necessarily negative about happening in the school systems in North Carolina as it relates to academics, especially some of the low income who score above grade level are not put into academic excellent programs, and they blame it on the counselors in the schools that they are counseling a lot more students than normally they should be. It's somewhere a little over 300 that each counselor should have, and some of them got almost up to 1,000. In Nash County school system, I certainly like to see them flourish, have excellent programs, and they talked about they may lose 8 teachers. I just would like to recommend, I mean, not just like to, but recommend that we, even though they asked for 300 and some, I don't have the exact figure right before me, but it was a little over $300,000. I would recommend that we do at least $100,000. And the program for the children, homeless children, and families with homeless children, they had asked for an increase of 10,000. They started with 10,000, but I suggest that maybe we could give them a $5,000 increase. This is not the homeless shelter. This is for the children who are homeless. And I know in Nash County they have identified over 500 children that are homeless in that classification. Boys and Girls Club wants to expand down into the southern part of Nash County, and I just think maybe we ought to give them at least $5,000 on that expansion. I know we have other nonprofits, but that have asked for increases, but those I think are more critical than the others. And that's my recommendation.
All right. What I'm gonna do, Mr. Belfield, is give each commissioner a chance to bring forward anything before our board, and then I'll go back and take up each item that a commissioner brings forward.
Okay.
Any other commissioner have any comments on the budget?
Just a question, excuse me, regarding the community paramedics program. Where do we stand with that in terms of funding?
Mr. Lamb?
It's my understanding, Mr. Brantley is here. He might be able to give us an update on that matter.
I've not heard, waiting to hear from the hospital and from the Senator Horn. I've contacted the hospital this morning and should get a phone call today. As soon as I get that number, we have heard that the hospital is going to support it, but we have not got a firm number. I think Ms. Barnes has heard the number, but we're not sure. And as soon as I get that, I'll let Mr. Lamb know if we can wait to hear that. So, certainly, hopefully we're gonna get some funding from the hospital and possibly through
Right.
legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Brantley. Mr. Outlaw, I think this board has taken the position that we certainly will wish to see that program contend, that we were going to let the process go through, and then if we needed to participate in it, Ben's, we're a little bit unknown at this time. We could easily do it by budget amendment at any time this board so wishes to.
Sounds good.
I know sometimes when we fund something before we get notification, if any other type funding is available, it may limit the type funding that is available. So we probably need to let the process roll out. And I don't think we're going to stop June. Hopefully, we'll know by July the 1st what the outcome is, but
I agree. It's a
wouldn't just
good program
continue.
with a proven track record.
Right, okay. Any other commissioner? Mr. Barnes, you raised forward, did you have something?
Oh, I was just agreeing with the
Okay.
community paramedic
All right,
program, and,
thank If no other commissioner has anything, I'd like to bring to the board's consideration, excuse me, Ms. Richardson, I'm sorry, you got to wake me up. Please go ahead.
That's okay. No, I just had a few comments on it too, is I think we have a good budget, but I'm still, as Mr. Belfield said, I'm concerned with our school. And I know that we are not in a position to suggest to them to how to fund their, or do their budget. But I have had calls, and I'm concerned about how some of the employees there are not getting compensated for raises or what have you. And, you know, they always say that we fund them so much, but we do not suggest to them how to use it. But my feeling is we all taxpayers, and I think they should at least listen to us, because I have had concerns, something unusual. I've had calls from bus drivers, and I talked to the superintendent about that. And I know they're doing a good job, and that's their decision to make, but I'm hoping that they will listen to us and try to compensate not just a few, but all to some degree, to let them know that you are important to us, because you're helping us to educate and take care of our children, and we have to do this together. So that's a problem I have on that, but I'm hoping, as Mr. Lamb, our manager, said, after this budget is adopted, maybe we can find a way to go in and see that we can assist them in some way, because I'm just a real advocate of our children, because that's our first priority, because they can't take care of themselves. We have to help do it. And that's my only concern on that. And then there are other issues, but they're minor, and we'll work through it and work on and make it better, because to me, I think our county are working into this budget session, and we have done a great job. Not saying it because I'm on there, because we have good leaders and good supporters of our budget in our county. And it's not just about us, but it's about every taxpayer in the county, and that's what we try to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Davis,
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to know that, Fred, are you putting any tie to the money you want to give the school system? Or could some of it be used to fund the bus drivers getting a
We
raise?
can't do it.
Well, Ms. Wells, as we all know, we really can't put ties
Can't put
on
what
any
Kelly
funds
did.
we
Okay, I understand.
give to the school system. We can give them the thoughts of this board, but that's really as far as we can in 90% of what funding we do for them.
Yeah.
When we get over in the capital, it's a little bit different, but still not a tremendous amount of difference in that.
That's fine.
So that's where we would be with that. I know Ms. Richardson has had some thoughts with the bus drivers for a long time, and appreciate those comments.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Anything else from board members?
Well, the initial budget that they presented us when they asked for the, what, 324,000?
I believe it was 361, Mr. Bellfield.
Okay. They had it listed as though it's for teachers.
Correct.
Yeah, because they're gonna be 8 short, and they need to, with what they projecting that the state may give them, and they asked us for some help on that. I know we can't go to 100%, well, I'm not recommending that we go to 100%, 351, but we ought to give them at least $100,000 toward that.
All right, understood. The item I wish to bring before the board was an item in the sheriff's department. This board recalls for a little bit over 2 years, we have been getting requests from the sheriff's department to help a little bit with the salaries of his command staff. It was a pretty large request when it first came to us year before last. It has been worked on within the internal budget of the sheriff's department and has been lowered a couple of times. What I'm going to bring to the board this morning is a request from the sheriff's department to consider amending the budget by $87,000 to assist in salaries of the command staff at the sheriff's department. We all feel, I think, in talking to each one of you individual about this, that we do indeed have a great sheriff, a great sheriff's department. We're all pleased with what's been done there. The concern seems to be that hopefully we could be able to keep this command staff that we currently have, which consists of somewhere in the range of 13 to 16 people in place. Of course, there's no guarantee of that when you got good people, as we have learned very recently. losing a couple of key department heads, for various reasons, and, future assistant city manager as well for a different reason. But it's important to help all we can with these key people and all of our people, quite frankly. We seem to be somewhat, as a board, available on a react situation when we potentially are going to lose a key department head. I guess this is maybe a little bit of different approach from my standpoint on rather than react, is to try to help the situation up front before it could occur. And I'd just like to, for the board to consider that increase in the budget. I would like to make it effective in August rather than July, because I want, if the board so considers, I would want it to be after the raises take place that are already proposed in the budget for these individuals. That number that I've given, which I would give to the manager, if we so choose it, you've asked a question of me up here in a note, does include the benefits that go along with the salary increase. All benefit costs are in that number as well. So as you see, that number has come down, not quite a third, but pretty close to a third what it was up front. So that is a item that I'm going to put on the list for us to consider as well. Anything else at this time? Seeing nothing else, I think we've got several ways we can go about this, and I thought about it quite a bit over the last day or two, how to move forward with it. As I said, we can approve the budget as submitted. We can approve it as amended today, or we can table it and continue working on it until June the 19th. The manager's preference, and I will add the chairman's preferences for us to resolve it today, so our citizens will know what the budget is a little bit early, so the staff can prepare and won't be pushed at the end of the budget year like we've done a couple of times, give them a full month to get everything in place. But with that said, I can just ask for motions or any further discussion on either one of these items. Mr. Bellfield has $100,000 for the school, $5,000 for the Bassett Center, and
Boys and Girls Club, I think.
and $5,000 for the Boys Club as well. And the request by Commissioner 7 is the $87,000 for the Sheriff's Department. And I'd entertain any motion that a board member is willing to put on the floor at this time.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bellfield?
I offer motion for approval of the 17-18 year budget with the following recommendations: $100,000 for school, $5,000 for the United Community Ministries for the children, Boys and Girls Club expansion, and $87,000 Sheriff's Department.
That the $5,000 is two different $5,000,
Right.
correct? Okay, just want to make sure I had it right as well. All right, I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Bellfield, a second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on the motion? Everybody fully understand what's in the motion? Seeing no questions, all in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Chairman, hold it.
Excuse me, Mr.
Are
Outlaw.
we open for comments?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That would be discussion on the motion.
Well, let's have some then.
Okay.
I am in full support, excuse my voice this morning, I've got some kind of issue with my throat. But I'm in full support of the school system, but I would prefer to see us look at the supplement issue with our teachers, which the manager indicated we were going to look at, and go into some partnership with the school system to increase the supplements for our teachers in the coming years. whatever percentage we choose, 1, 2, 3%, whatever. We, this year, without any increase to the school system at all, we are in fact giving them a $376,500 increase. If you take, and I'm just rounding it off, 250 kids at the per pupil spending of $1,507, and I think those numbers are correct, then that is $376,000 plus that we are putting into their coffers that would otherwise not be there. Back to Mr. Bellfield's point on teachers, the state doesn't look at a local system and say, I'm going to just give you an arbitrary number of teachers. They fund teachers based on population. So I don't know why the school system would be 8, 15 teachers short when the state funds based on population. Now, if I'm incorrect in that statement, then somebody please correct me now.
I think you're correct in that statement, Mr. Outlaw.
So I believe the school system is funded for their population. Now, they may need additional teachers for their global initiatives. I don't know. I don't know what they need it for. But they are getting $376,500. I would prefer to work with the school system to increase teacher supplements. If we give them $100,000, we have no guarantee that it's going to go to anything. I mean, it could go to the central office. Who knows? I don't know what it'll go to. We have no control over it. I, again, prefer to work with them on the supplement issue. So I would not be in support of giving them just arbitrarily a $100,000 increase on top of a $376,000 increase. Community ministries, we fund at $30,000. We are funding almost 55% of the money that goes to community ministries, 54.55%. Edgecombe County funds 9.09%, or $5,000. City of Rocky Mount funds 35.36%, or $20,000, for a total of $55,000. The City of Rocky Mount has denied an increase to United Community Ministry. I don't know why, but they denied an increase. They're holding at $20,000 for the upcoming year. Edgecombe County is shown as holding for the upcoming year. If we increase United Community Ministries at what they ask us, or $10,000, and I know Mr. Bellfield has said $5,000, then that would, if we did the 10, that would increase our percentage to 61.54%. So before I would agree to any increase to United Community Ministries, which is a great program, and everybody supports that program, and certainly Republicans and Democrats alike support the children. We all support the children. But I would like to see some kind of formula, some kind of logic as to why we would fund almost 62%. I don't know where the population comes from, who they're serving, what their demographics are, but I think that's the kind of information that we need, which would make it easier for us to budget going forward, rather than just arbitrarily saying we're going to give you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So I would not be in support of that, short of getting that information. The Boys and Girls Club, I would be totally supportive of a club in the southern part of the county if we don't have a club there. But again, I'd like to see the demographics of the Boys and Girls Club, the logic for that, and if in fact we're going to start a club in the southern part of the county, then let the Boys and Girls Clubs come back to us with a recommendation on starting that club in the southern part of the county, and then I think you would find this board willing to participate in funding that support. I have issues with just throwing additional monies without any logic for that money going for those purposes. So I would be against those three items.
Thank you, Mr. Outlaw. Other comments from commissioners on the motion I have on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm kind of young and dumb being the newest member on this board, but the request from the school board for $361,000 included, and the reason for it was for teachers because of the state requirement that the classroom size be drastically reduced. That didn't happen. They also were going to follow a plan that give 6.5% increase in salaries to administrative, 5% to teachers, and 16.5% increase in retirement funding. Since they don't need more teachers, I think our money would be a whole lot better spent if we could get on some agreement. And I'm first to agree that teachers' salaries need to be increased, but if we increase our subsidy and with a plan that it goes straight to the teachers, I think we'd be better off. There's no way we need more teachers in Nash County because the classroom size didn't get required to be reduced drastically, and we're going to have less students next year than we do this year. So I think we need to know where our money's going.
Thank you, Mr. Combs. Other comments?
I agree with the comments for the funding for the school system also, and I think we can work together on some plans to increase the supplement as we have in the past. I'm pleased that we've increased it from 6% up now until, till 10%. Also on the nonprofit funding, I worry about setting a precedent when we increase, and we're not increasing all of them. And, I think we need to have some kind of formula or some kind of policy on how we fund these nonprofits, because they're just all over the place. And they're all good programs, don't get me wrong, but we need some kind of system or formula. I would not be supportive of those, but I support the increase for the sheriff's department salaries.
All right. I want to make one thing clear because I promised our school board chairman, Ms. Wilson, I would make sure we stayed on task on this item. The request that came from the school board for $361,000 did not have anything to do with the potential decrease in teachers by the state, which they eventually absorbed. What it was tied to was the fact that they were going to lose teachers because of the reduction in the number of students. She was very implicit and made sure I understood, this is for the benefit of the board, that when you lose 250 students, you don't lose those 250 students out of 12 classes, and you don't need those 12 classes anymore. They are all over the school system, and it may have been 3 of them in an advanced math class, and I could go down the list telling you. So it's not a simple thing to reduce your teacher count by the amount of students that you do not have back. And I just want to make sure we all understood that, and it wasn't tied to what was going on at the state. But with that said, I do agree that it would be by far better to work with the school system, and as we said, we can make budget amendments anytime in identifying the supplement for the teachers and try to work together with the school system. And I have as chairman, and I think the rest of you have a concern about it, when you have a reduction in students, you can't continue to operate the same number of facilities moving forward. We've got some facilities, just reading the minutes from the school board's retreat, that are not anywhere near full. We need to take a comprehensive look on our facilities, and it appears like we could eliminate, even though it's very hard to do because of neighborhood longevity and having a school close by and numerous other things, to not continue using a particular facilities. But in the times we're in, you've just got to look at facilities real hard, and I hope we can work together with our school board, which we all know the cooperation has increased tremendously by commitment of this board and a commitment by the school board to move forward in a partnership, so we can look at teacher supplements as well as facility needs in a joint working relationship moving forward. And I think once we work through part of that, it would then be the time to decide what this board's willing to do to put more money in the school systems. And if you're passionate about something, whether it be teacher supplements or whether it be bus drivers, do what we can to let those comments or feelings that we have be known, and hopefully get a commitment from them that they understand, as well as their 11 members, what these 7 members feel, what it takes to do the best for the children in Nash County. So due to that, Mr. Belfield, and the rest of them that do support it, that's where I would stand on that particular item. I feel like, as chairman, I need to step back a minute and be commissioner number 7, because we do serve by district, and if we don't serve our people by having an office on this board, we're not doing totally our job. And stepping down just a moment for being chairman, I'd also like to say on the nonprofits that I feel like we have about 17 on that list, if I remember right. It's very difficult because we all know they're all underfunded probably. They all work hard, some much harder than others, to raise funds themselves. Many members of this board serve on some of those nonprofits. And I'm sure will do a great job. I have a particular one that I'm very fond of, but I haven't brought that to light simply because we've had a great fundraising year ourselves and been able to keep our budget in pretty good shape for the Christian Fellowship Home. But with that said, I'm at the point where if there are no more comments, I do have a motion and a second on the floor. Mr. Belfield, further comment?
One more comment.
Yes, sir.
About United Community Ministries. Even though the Bassick Center is located on the Edgecombe County side, that program is actually controlled by Nash County. And
Okay, comment well taken. I have a motion on the floor. I'd like to repeat the motion, make sure we remember what it was, which is to amend the budget as submitted by staff to add $100,000 for the schools, $5,000 to the Bassett Center, which goes in United Ministries, and $5,000 to the Boys Club, and $87,000 to the Sheriff's Department. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any, those opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Seems that motion failed. I would entertain any other motion from the floor at this time. Are we clear, Madam Clerk, what the vote was?
No.
We are not. If not, for her benefit to get it right, I'd like a show of hands for those that support that motion. All right, the vote was 5-2. What's that?
She raised her.
Oh, you did raise your hand.
I voted for it.
You almost ran out of time as well. The motion fails 4-3.
5-2. I voted it.
Excuse me one moment.
5-2. It was 5-2.
Okay, all right. Gotcha. All right, thank you, Mr. Lamb. Wayne, you have passed down whatever you had this week.
I'm sorry. Is there some question about whether it 4-3 or 5-2 or?
I think your vote is now 4-3,
5-2.
5-2. All right, Ms. Wells did not vote for the motion,
Right.
so the motion is 5-2. Excuse me, the vote is 5-2.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a motion that we amend the budget for $87,000 for the Sheriff's Department.
All right, I have a motion on the floor by Ms. Wells. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second. I have a motion to take the budget that was presented by staff, amended by the $87,000 for the Sheriff's Department, and I have a motion by Ms. Wells, a second by Mr. Outlaw, and I'm understanding, to make it clear that the staff, primarily the manager at this point in time, would not want to change the budget itself, that he feels that a dollar amount can be covered in the line item of lap salaries, which we always have quite a few of during the year. I think Mr. Lamb is committed to keeping this budget as close to $90 million as he can, which is very commendable. And so it wouldn't be a change in the budget amount, it would be a change within the budget itself. Mr. Outlaw, question?
Would you take just a moment and kind of give some of the logic why this sheriff's command staff increase, at least in my opinion, is appropriate? And I know we've discussed this, and I believe you have with everybody else.
Yep, I have, and I said a little bit in introducing the motion, but to just go back through it again, this is an item that the Sheriff Department has worked on for a little over 2 years. We heard it year before last in our budget request. We heard it this past year in our budget request. And what it boils down to is he is just trying to improve his salaries. The Sheriff Department started out trying to make comparisons between municipal government and county government and make a parallel on the need to have our Nash County come as close as we could to the predominant city in our county, which is, of course, the city of Rocky Mount. In my experience and research, as well as working with Mr. Lamb and the rest of our staff, we determined that it's almost impossible to have a parallel between what a county can do for its law enforcement and what a municipality can do. And that is driven by the fact that we have so many other funding agencies that require the majority of our budget that a municipality may not be responsible for. And those, of course, as we know, include the Health Department, the Social Services Department, as well as what we've discussed mostly this morning, our school system. Neither of those items are a funding requirement of a municipality, except for a little quirk, not a quirk, but a little difference in Nash County in the school systems that will eventually put it like the rest of the counties in the state and won't be a requirement for Rocky Mountain to fund either. So we did review throughout the state the funding for county sheriff departments as it relates to larger municipalities throughout the state, and we just found that that's just an impossible task to undertake. So the Sheriff Department has worked very hard on this, and they've come back a couple of times with different scenarios, and it's not any comparison now even with what Rocky Mountain is able to do for their police department. What it is just an attempt to take those command staff, which most of those people on that list are exempt employees, which mean they do not get paid for overtime. And they are required to work whenever they need to work. And I'm sure they're like many of us, they probably work most of the time, even when they're home, doing the job that they are tasked to do. This board, in discussing it with them, several of you made the comment that they are somewhat unique because of the safety issue that they face every day, you know, when they leave their family and go out and look after the citizens of Nash County. And that is probably more understood during the times we're in than it's ever been understood. And so the difficulty that this board had, and particularly Commissioner number 7 had, is the fact that we are indeed looking at an individual group of our employees, which in reality, we would like to be doing more for every employee we have, with the exception of maybe just a very small handful, and I don't know what who's in that handful, but nobody ever has great employees if you have as many employees as we do. But I can assure you, the citizens of Nash County, that for the most part, we have very great and excellent employees. So that's why I guess I took it as an item, that, and I mentioned it in our retreat very briefly, that I would like to consider this But at that time, none of us knew what the end budget would be. We didn't know quite what the revenue was. We didn't know what the impact was from the revow. And as it has turned out, I was totally wrong in what I thought the revow would be, and as I was in the collection, the way we changed collection on motor vehicles. I like being wrong when I'm wrong on the good side of things. Mr. Belfield, I will tell you publicly that you were a lot more right than what I was on that item, and I'm glad you were. But as we know, our revenues are better. The staff has done an excellent job since Mr. Lamb has been here of increasing 2 items of revenue. Those are our property tax as well as the collections in the EMS department for the services that they provide. So that, with the improvement in the economy that we're seeing, it's not Wake County, it's not Mecklenburg County, but we're not going backwards anymore. So the revenues and our assessed value in the county itself outside of some of our municipalities has increased over the last 8 years. And quite frankly, it has increased quite a bit during the last year or two. Home construction and construction in itself, which is the industry I'm in, is doing much, much better than what it has done since about 2009. So for those reasons, I was comfortable in moving forward with trying to fulfill this long-term request. Mr. Outlaw, does that give enough information, you think?
Yeah, for me, 2 key things.
Sure.
The fact that they're out there at risk
Sure.
every minute of every day, plus the fact that if they get called out during the night, and they do often, they spend a lot of time out there, they're exempt. And that means, like it meant when I worked at Abbott. If I worked 4 days at 12 hours a day or 7 days at 12 hours a day, you get paid the same money. So I think it's a very appropriate increase, and there's some sound logic behind why we are agreeing to this.
Okay. Any other comments? Mr. Lamb, from commissioners first. Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, I just want to clarify what we're requesting. If this motion passes, I would ask that the motion be that we incorporate these raises beginning August 1st. However, I would ask that you pass the budget ordinance as it's been presented today. Past history indicates that lapsed salaries and other savings and expenditures in the sheriff's budget will be more than $87,000. So we don't feel like there's a need right now. Now, if next June no one resigns the whole year and we don't have any lapsed salaries, we would at that time come to the board. Thank you.
All right. I think Ms. Wells understood that and had it in her motion. I appreciate you clearing it up. And Mr. Outlaw, I think you made the second that you're okay with those clarifications?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Belfield?
I'm not fully clear now. We voting just for the 87,000 for the sheriff's department, or are we voting for the total budget?
87 for the sheriff's department.
What now?
Well, no, what the motion on the floor is to approve
The raises.
the
raises effective.
Got approved 87,
Right.
and put it in the budget.
It's already in the budget.
but then do we have another vote?
And then you have another vote for the ordinance.
Okay, all right. Okay. Not quite how I understood it, but that's fine. To answer your question, yes, the vote is just for the increase in the sheriff's department.
Okay.
All right. Everybody clear on that? All right, all in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries. Is there any other items to bring forward about the budget itself prior to asking for a motion to approve the budget as we amended it this morning?
Budget ordinance.
What would actually be, what I'm asking for now is a motion to approve the budget ordinance for the 2017, 2018 fiscal year as amended by the board this morning.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw,
Second.
second by Mr. Combs. Any questions on the motion?
What amendments did we put in there today?
Well, we made it an amendment, it is strictly the item we just finished up with about the sheriff's, but it is not an amendment in the total cost of the budget. It is a amendment, and do we not need to do it that way? So it's fully
Y'all- yeah,
understood?
Yeah, you're now being asked to approve the budget ordinance, which does not include an additional 87,000, because that 87,000, we believe, can be absorbed in the current sheriff's department appropriation. And if it cannot, then we will bring it to you at some time, probably May or June next year.
Mr. Belfield, it is a change in the budget as presented within a department's budget itself. So that's why it's an amendment. Any other questions? Have a motion and a second. All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign?
No.
My understanding is that's a 6-1 vote. Okay. Thank y'all, again, and more importantly, thank the staff for all the work they've done and presenting this to us. It's, not been easy, but it's not been by far the hardest one we've dealt with either. And I thank every staff member that's here this morning for the work that's been put forth in it. We're on item 7, which is a request by the Nash Rocky Mount School Systems for approval of a computer lease. And I have Jane Finch is presenting that. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, this morning I'm asking for 2 resolution approvals for the purchase of laptops. The first one, the lease purchase of 5,000 Lenovo's for students in grades 9 through 12. The annual payment will be $376,000 for 4 years, with a total buyout the 5th year of $1. These devices come with a 4-year cover-to-cover warranty. The approximate cost per device is $300.80. That's, you may do them both at the same time? Or one at the time?
I'll let you make that decision, both
Okay,
at
I'm
the
gonna do them
same
both.
time,
They're pretty
okay?
much the same thing, and then I'll just add
Okay.
one statement. Okay, number 2, the lease purchase of 1,300 Dell devices for the teachers and administrators. Annual payment will be $170,248.36 for 4 years. Buyout of $1 for the 5th year. These devices come with a 4-year warranty. Approximate cost, $522.85. We will use the same docking station, monitor, and keyboard that they currently have in their classrooms. And on the resolution, if you look at the last paragraph, by the Board of Education, the purpose, Nash County Board of Commissioners shall not be obligated to increase its annual appropriation to the Board of Education for these 2 purchases.
You think that's important for us to know?
Probably so.
Thank you. Any questions on this item?
I make a motion, we approve.
Let me make sure we don't have any questions, Ms. Wells. I'll take the motion at that point in time. Any questions?
Yes, why is this brought to?
Apparently, by state law, when the school board enters into a long-term or possibly a lease of any kind, it's kind of like the volunteer fire departments, when they get a loan for a fire truck or whatever, it has to be approved by this board, even though it does not obligate this board.
Okay.
And I hope I've stated that right, Mr. Durham.
That's close enough. Continuing contracts for capital outlays require
I got you.
Okay. Any other questions on that request? It seems to be a significant change in the computers we're using in the school system. I'm sure y'all spent a lot of time analyzing that, and hopefully we are doing the right thing. I'm sure we are. It seems to be a lot less expensive approach anyway. All right, Ms. Wells, I will take that motion to approve at this time. Is there a second?
Approve.
Motion by Ms. Wells, second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries, and thank you all for being here this morning. At this time, I'm going to need to alter the agenda just a little bit. We had advertised for a Board of Equalization and Review at 10 o'clock, and I'm somewhat past that hour at this point in time. So I'm gonna move from where we are, which is item 7, down to item 11. And I'm gonna recess the regular meeting at this point in time, and then I'm gonna move to item 12 and call to order the Nash County Board of Equalization and Review, and call Mr. Wren and anyone else he's got with him to come forward. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Bear with me just a second here.
Do you want me to explain this to the citizens, or are you going to do that, Mr. Wren?
I'll give you an outline
Okay, thank
of what's going on. We do have one appeal scheduled today,
All right.
and I was just going to give you an outline of the
Pull it down some.
property on the appeal. I'm sorry, what?
Pull it down some.
Yeah.
There you go.
The item under appeal, or the property under appeal this morning, is owned by Hendon Golden East LLC of 1100 Northwestern Boulevard in Rocky Mount. This is the shopping mall in Rocky Mount, and over to the left, Bert has placed on the easel a aerial overhead of the property, and I'll actually go ahead and place one here so you can see it a little better on your monitor, and I'll let you know what's on this piece of paper I just pulled. This property is the shopping mall located at 1100 North Westland Boulevard in Rocky Mount. It actually consists of 52.8 acres. It was built in 1986 and renovated in 2005. The 2016 assessed valuation, which is the valuation before.
Can we see those numbers again?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that,
Yes.
This is what we know is the Golden Leaf Mall,
Yes, sir.
Golden East Mall.
Yes, sir, the Golden East Mall.
Started out Golden Leaf, and that probably got not popular at some point in time.
All right. The assessed valuation before the revaluation was $33,634,180. The 2017 revaluation value before the appeal was filed was $29,893,500. Then after the information was reviewed by Pearson Appraisal and Tax Office staff, the value was adjusted considering that information that we had not had previously. The value has been adjusted to $19,085,840. The appellant's indicated opinion of fair market value in their appeal is $12,500,000. So with that said, I understand that Mr. Kevin Baker is here to speak on behalf of Hendon Golden East, the taxpayer. And, of course, we have with us today also Fred Pearson, Pearson Appraisal, that will be stating the tax office position. So at this time, if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, we'll ask the appellant to come up and present his case.
All right, is there a swearing-in process we need to do
No.
for this?
No, sir, it's a pretty informal at this point.
Informal, okay.
And when if it was to go beyond this point to the PTC, then it's a more formal hearing.
Mr. Wren, you say you've got one here. From my understanding, maybe other board members, could someone come here today that we do not know is here to make an appeal to this? board
Yes,
people?
sir.
Okay.
When we're through with
I'd like to
this.
clarify on that, if you would, before you sit down.
Yes, sir. When we are through with this appeal, if there's anyone here today that has shown up, has appeared for the purpose of filing an appeal for the 2017 revaluation, this is your time to do it. At the close of the meeting today, as has been previously advertised, the board will adjourn for the purpose of accepting any new appeals. However, I should, and I'm glad you offered me this opportunity to explain, there are some, about a handful of appeals, maybe less than 10, that have been filed late within the last 10 days, and we need to give them, we have responded, but we need to give them 15 days to respond. So there's that outside possibility that after the close of business today, that we could come back and ask you as the Board of County Commissioners to hear such an appeal. It's doubtful, but I do need to let you know that that possibility exists. But the law provides for that to be taken care of and for the taxpayers to be given due process. So I just wanted to clarify that.
And the way you stated that, so if it's not done today, it wouldn't be before the Board of
If
Equalization?
it's not done today, it will actually be before you. You would hear the appeal as the county commissioners
Okay.
and then rule on it as you deem necessary.
But
And then
not as the Board of Equalization?
Yes, sir. Technically, not as the Board of
So
Equalization.
after today, that process is closed?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But any decision you happen to make, if that does occur, will be providing the taxpayer with due process, and they certainly have the right then, if they so choose, to take it to the next level, which is the Property Tax Commission.
Thank you,
Okay?
Mr. Lynn. Mr. Baker?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay, so my name's Kevin Baker. I work for Marvin F. Pouring Company, and we're representing the Golden East Crossing. And I've got a card here for the record if anyone needs to enter that. Okay. So I've brought some supporting information with me this morning, and I'd like to pass it out if possible. I beg your pardon, but I've only brought 7 copies. That's typically the most needed at a Board of Equalization.
You can just give those to the clerk, and she'll get them
Okay.
to us, will be fine.
There was an appraisal that we submitted on behalf of the owners. This is a full copy of it, but I did make 7 copies of that. I think the summary information.
And give us just a minute
Sure.
to get those dispersed. And while we're doing that, we used the word Golden East Mall. I do know that a couple of those stores are individually owned by tenants. Does it include those, or are you going to explain that in your presentation?
Yes, sir. Thanks for bringing that up. Some of the, what we know as the anchor stores are not owned by Hendon Golden East Properties.
Right, so they will not be in.
They're not a part of this
Okay.
appeal.
That's
That's
fine.
correct.
Okay.
And just to confirm, my power of attorney is included in this information that's being handed out.
Could you tell us what those stores are? No Belts is one of them.
I can. Let's see here. Okay, J.C. Penney is self-owned, okay? And Dunham's Athletic Supply or Sporting Goods, that's owned by themselves. Belk is part of the property.
Belt is part of the property you're speaking of today?
Yes, sir.
I misunderstood. You said yes, sir? Okay, that's different than what I thought, but that's fine.
So Belk is part of this. The 2 anchor stores that are not, that are excluded, I'll just confirm J.C. Penney and Dunham's.
Okay, thank you.
So, the major stores, I'm sure people are familiar with this mall. The major stores are Ross, there's a bookstore, Books A Million, J.C. Penney, Belk, Dunham's. There's a new store called Conn's Appliances. The appraisal that you have, or at least the excerpts, that was done by the bank that finances this property in order to assess the collateral, and they gave the owners permission for us to supply that appraisal in support of their appeal. So, and I want to thank Mr. Wren and the assessor staff and the Pearson staff. They did take time to thoroughly review our appeal documentation, and I had a few conversations with them, and so I appreciate what they've done here. The owners are insisting on their opinion of value of $12.5 million. Through the appeal process, the long and short of it is the actual expenses at this property are simply greater than what would typically be applied in a retail property. Their expense ratio is much higher than typically found, and that's just a function of this type of property. We know retail malls are oftentimes in decline in the current state of affairs with Walmart and Amazon and other retailing competitors. And that was I think our main point of disagreement. But the appraisal you have there, or at least the significant excerpts, that shows the value of the property based on the actual income. The reason the expenses are what would be out of typical guidelines is because the tenants just simply can't afford to pay their share of the expenses. The way these types of properties work is the landlord collects a pro rata share of the common area expenses, and tenants in this market are oftentimes unable to contribute that fair share. So when you get their contract rent, then you stack on top of that a fair share of the expenses, they're just simply not able to make those payments to the owner, and therefore the owner is stuck paying those, total expenses. So I wanted to kind of touch base on the most recent tenant there, which is Conn's Appliances. They took over an anchor space, and I've included some pages from their lease, and this is a recently signed lease, and their rental rate's $1.50 a square foot. That's on page 13. On page 14, you can see in their lease, their contract share of the expenses is $2 a square foot. So they're paying a total of $3.50 a square foot. That's a very low lease rate, but that's the kind of rate that the market is supporting right now. So it's very difficult for owners of these types of properties to make a go of it the way they could back in the 80s and 90s. So the revised recommended value from the county, which is a drastic reduction, and like I say, it's appreciated. That was $40 a square foot. The owner's value, the owner's opinion of value that I'm representing today is $27 a square foot. And if you'll turn to page 16, this is taken from the appraisal I brought in. There's a table of comparable sales. Now, these are regional malls, so they're not all from this local area. They're over the southeast and even further. But you can see a range of sales per square foot that go from anywhere from $13 to $138 a square foot. So the owner's opinion seems like a very low value per square foot, but that's not unusual in today's market for these types of properties. And I've highlighted the Monroe Crossing, which is probably the closest comparable sale on this list. It's sold for $45 a square foot, and that's very close. In fact, it's a little over what the assessor's recommended value. So I think that is reasonable. But as I said before, the owners are insisting on their opinion of value based on their actual income and expenses. The truth is they're operating at a loss, and they really need to try to get the value to what they believe is fair and mitigate these expenses that are causing this problem in the first place. So I don't want to go on too long and take up too much time, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions, board members, at this time of Mr. Baker?
I just want to clarify one thing.
Yes, sir.
Outlaw?
You said that 12.5 is based on actual income.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Bellfield?
In your appraisal value, did you include the recent remodeling that's
Yes,
been
sir.
done out there?
That's correct. So part of the conditions that are stated in that appraisal is they did include the recent lease to Conn's Appliances. And one point, this is a good time to explain this even further. The appraiser that did this included that income, but they also deducted the value of those tenant improvements, which was about $500,000. So the appraisal actually came in at $13 million, but in order to get to that $13 million, the landlords had to invest $500,000 to get the space ready to accept cons. I've been in the mall, I have not been in cons specifically, but that's a different type of store than was there before. And so there's probably a good deal of tenant changes that needed to be made. So it would be reasonable to, because that was technically a capital expense, it'd be reasonable to, arrive at a value of $13 million. But this appraiser deducted that because that was a cost to attract that tenant that brought the value to the 12.5.
Did I understand you to say that the anchors own portions of, they actually own the part that they?
That's correct.
So it's not
unusual.
100% owned by one company?
That's correct. And that's very common in regional malls. Oftentimes, the anchor company like JCPenney is a typical one that would be in this category. They might have a store that the property lines or the footprint of their building, maybe even some of the parking lot, but they own that separately, even though the property is connected. As you can see there, it doesn't appear there's any.
And that includes the parking lot around that particular area?
I haven't studied the actual property lines of these separately owned anchors.
I think in this
specifically,
case, it's just the land under the building.
Right, that's a typical circumstance in these types of properties.
Other questions of board members? Let me get to you just a second, if I could. It seems like, Mr. Baker, the way you presented this, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong in the way I understood it, it seems like, normally an appraisal itself goes at something on three different approaches, and then it uses those three different approaches to come to what would be the true value.
That's correct.
It seems like you have, or maybe your owner's direction, have tried to isolate one approach, which is the income approach, and use that to formulate what y'all are presenting as the value, rather than analyzing all three. Am I wrong in assuming that?
No, you're not wrong. Oftentimes, especially with the appeal cases, the income approach is most emphasized. Most counties in North Carolina, and I believe this Nash County included, they often emphasize the income approach. People purchase real estate for the income stream, not for the pride of ownership or, for future value. And so that's the most often emphasized approach. But the appraiser that prepared this did survey comparable sales, as I pointed out on, let's see,
Right.
that was page 16. The sales comparison and income approaches in this appraisal did come down to very similar values. The cost approach was also done, and that was actually a much, much higher value because it's a cost to replace the property, and it wouldn't be worth economically feasible, that is, to build this type of property in today's market.
But it's just, my experience in the standard is you take those two, which is replacement cost, which is comparable sales, and then income, and get some matrix of those three to come up with what's on the bottom line of an appraisal.
That's correct.
Of course, I haven't looked at what you provided us, because we just got
Okay,
handed
so on
this
page
morning.
8, they've broken down the comparison of the three approaches.
On page
And,
8.
Page 8, I've hand-numbered these pages to
Sure,
try and
that's fine.
speed things up a little
No
bit.
problem.
Page 8, they've lined up their income and their sales and what they're calling insurable value. The difference between the insurable value or the cost approach and, say, the sales comparison, that would be economic obsolescence. You might see that a lot in personal property appeals cases. But the sales comparison approach is difficult in this type of property right now because there are so few nearby sales at regional malls.
That's right. I sometimes say more than I should, and maybe getting ready to do that, but it just appears like to me, it's an over-expectation for this Board of Equalization and Review to go so far against what industry standard is and itemize just one approach to get to the number that may best serve the request that is made.
The difference between the income and sales comparison approach is approximately $1 a square foot. So those two approaches in this appraisal are very close, but
I see.
when I do appeals, especially in North Carolina, we typically emphasize the income approach. So frankly, the main difference between this appraisal and the county assessor's value is that the expenses at this property are just much higher than a typical retail property. And I understand why they're not able to apply a 60% expense ratio. But the owners feel like that is the market for these types of properties in this day and age. High expenses are the norm rather than the exception, as you might find in a textbook on appraising retail property.
But the expense of a given property is a controlled consideration by the owner itself, and I don't know how much emphasis this board should be.
Well, some
putting
fixed
on-
expenses, for instance, taxes are
Sure, I
not.
understand.
But utilities and things like that may or may not be. Security, you kind of reach a downward spiral when you start to lower expenses too much, then the tenants go away because the trash hasn't been picked up or the grounds aren't maintained. And that's the pitfall of this type of property right now. But I don't want to get too far into academics, and I'd like to just make sure I've answered all your questions, and I'll respect your decision.
Understood. Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Durham?
I was just, I don't have this information in front of me, but I was trying to confirm that you said that the current tax office value is $40 a square foot.
Right, that was that Mr. Wren
Then you said that
explained.
the most comparable sale that you were aware of was Monroe Crossing, is that Monroe, North Carolina?
That's correct.
And that value was $45 a square
Correct.
foot. So we were less than that value.
Well, what I'm pointing out is, after discussing that, that I'd had discussions with the assessor's office, I'm pointing out where we found common ground, but the appraiser that prepared this appraisal applied a lower comparable sale value. I just try to point out that the value we're requesting is within the range of comparable sales.
Okay.
I don't pretend to stand here and be the appraiser or make the adjustments.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for your time.
Mr. Wren, did you have a further comment?
Mr. Chairman, I think at this time, it might be good if I could ask Mr. Pearson if he would come forward and explain how his interpretation of the adjustments were made, and go from there.
That'd be great, thank you. Welcome, sir.
Yes, sir. Fred Pearson, Pearson's Appraisal Service. Concerning Golden East Mall, the appraisal includes everything connected to the mall except for the Belts store.
All right.
Belts is,
That's two different things we've been told, so.
yes. But anyway, in our assessment, that's what it includes. The appraisal that was done as of February the 26th, 2016. They also sent the 2000.
Pearson, if I could.
Yes.
I got to get this stuff as you're saying it. But, so what you're saying about what's included is considerably different from what this gentleman stated. So you're saying the denim and the pennies is included?
Yeah, that is correct.
And Belts is the only one that's left out?
Yes, sir.
And was I correct in my statement, which I shouldn't have made, that, and I only know that because I remember when it was built, it's the land under the store only, under Belts, and everything else goes with what you're doing?
No, sir. The land Belts, and they have a certain amount of acreage there that's their own, that's their own parcel.
Okay, thank you. And it includes some of the parking, you think?
It does.
Okay, thank you for correcting that.
The appraisal that was submitted, the date of the appraisal was 2/26/2016, which means that it did not include the income from 2016. They did supply that information. I did review it. I used their expenses that they had. I used their net operating income. I did make a reduction in their property taxes because their assessment is going to go down from 33 million to 19,085,000. And that's about $203,000 reduction in their taxes. And I did reduce their expenses that much, which made their net operating income more. And I have the net operating income of $1,870,600. In their appraisal, they use a cap rate of 11.5%. And of course, the higher the cap rate, the lower the value. I used 9.5. I had retail sales here, not mall sales, but retail sales are reflected about an 8.5% cap rate. I do think the mall is a little bit more of a risky investment. So I did use a higher cap rate of 9.5. My indicated value was $19,690,000 based on their 2016 income and make an adjustment for the reduction in taxes. Also looked at their comparable sales, and just simply the day of the appraisal was 2/26/2016. They had 11 sales. The average sale price per square foot was $49 per square foot. The Golden East Mall has leasable square footage of 467,997 square feet. Indicated value based on the average sale price per square foot in the appraisal would be $22,931,900. I did read on page 1 of the appraisal that the purpose of the appraisal was for assessed values purposes. Is there any questions?
Any questions, Mr. Pearson, from board members? Thank you, Mr. Pearson.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Wren, further instructions from you, sir, for this board.
No, sir, I'm just glad we were able to clarify that confusion over what was under appeal and what tax records indicated this time.
One question now that it's been pointed out to by Mr. Lamb. When I look at that map, is that belts that's a different color near the bottom, and is that the property around it that goes with belts?
Yes, sir. Belts and the parking lot is
Okay, so that's
separate.
what's outside of what we...
Separate from this appeal,
Okay.
according to our records.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I guess we have no further comment.
Mr. Lamb has a question for us.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Moore, is that, what was your name?
Baker.
Baker, Mr. Baker. Did the appraisal assume that Dunham's and Penny's was not part of it, or that Belts was not part of it?
Excellent question.
Okay, so if you look at page, let's see here. Okay, so page 7, that's from the appraisal, and if you look down where I've highlighted anchor tenants, they say owned or unowned, and I simply had those backwards, so I apologize for that.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, thank you.
I got you.
So at this time, Mr. Chairman, I would assume that you all would choose to make a decision or to or table it to a later date, or you have the, obviously, the full discretion to do what
Understood.
the board.
All right, do we take them, if we've got more coming unannounced today that are here, do you want to
You can
dissolve,
certainly hear them.
dispose of this one at this point in time?
Ever how the board wants to do it, you
I
can.
think it would be best to do it that way if permissible.
All right, yes, sir. So at this time, then, if there's anyone else here that is here for the purpose of having a hearing presented or an appeal presented to the Board of ENR, please come forward. And there's no one, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, well, board members, you've heard the presentation, and it is the responsibility of this board to, I guess, Mr. Wren, if you would stay up there, I'm probably gonna ask some questions and give it instructions. We either, take what y'all have recommended, we can take what the owner has recommended, or we can go at any point in between,
Yes, sir.
or any point outside of the two numbers, I guess.
Yes, sir.
That's the latitude that we have. So basically, we've got the two numbers, one from our staff and our consulting firm, and one from the representative for the owner this morning. What is the pleasure of the board as far as setting the value of this particular property?
Just got one more question.
Sure, Mr. Outlaw.
Mr. Baker said that the 12.5 was based on the actual income. And Mr. Pearson, did you say, excuse me, that the 2000s, if you just use the 2016 actual income, that it would be 22 million?
In their appraisal, they did not use the 2016 income because the date of their appraisal is 2/26, 2016. Last year, that information was not available. I did use the 2016 information, and they did supply that information. And I did make an adjustment for reduction in property taxes, which made the expenses less, net operating income more, and I used calculated times more, 5%.
Right, which was a little higher. Okay.
Any other questions? To me, the most important thing that we heard was the focus of one item to derive at the value on the owner's part versus what is industry standard, and looking at least somewhat at all three of them. I understand that certain replacement value in this case is not an appropriate way to appraise this property at all, but certainly I would think similar sales in the same state would have to have some input into the decision of this. But with that said, I would entertain a motion of what we set this value at.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bellfield.
I offer a motion that we set the value at what the staff has recommended. Was it $19,085,840?
All right, I've got a motion on the floor. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I got a motion by Mr. Bellfield, a second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? That motion carries. Mr. Wren,
Chairman, I would then ask you to consider a motion to adjourn the Board of Equalization and Review for 2017.
okay, I'm still concerned as a board member that whether we have indeed, and I know we've tried, but I just get a disappointment level when we do not get participation from our public that I think a decision of this nature needs. And either you guys, your staff, and our consultant are excellent in what you do, and I don't question that you are excellent in what you do. But with the vast amount of changes, I guess I'm disappointed again that we haven't had any more involvement from the public than what we have had. We have advertised that we would close this process today, so to leave it open for another 2 weeks would not be in order, I guess. And I'm not saying I want to do that, but I just want to express maybe to the public that they've had many, many opportunities to appear to our staff here, and then an opportunity to come to this Board of Equalization and Review. And I just, I guess I've been wrong about everything in this whole process. I expected to get some appeals, more to the staff and some to the board than what I've seen, but it should be encouraging to me, and indeed is, that we're not like some counties and had a mass of appeals. We apparently have done a great job, which is wonderful. It just shows again the employees that we have and the ability for our department heads and manager staff to choose the right consultant when we choose consultants, which we don't do any more than we absolutely have to. But I just end that by saying it's a job well done on everybody's part. So I would entertain a motion to close at this time the Equalization and Review Board, and that would be for this year, and it would be available again next year. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
And does that go by calendar year or by financial year?
That actually, anything for the purpose of being billed this July when we bill ad valorem billing, but that will be for the, well, in our case, the way we think, probably the tax year of 2017-18 budget.
Okay.
But anything that would affect the next year's budget would be available for appeal after this year.
Okay. And I think my
Calendar year.
correct language should be to entertain a motion to adjourn the Board of Equalization and Review for fiscal year 2017, 2018 at this time.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bellfield.
since we have another meeting on the 19th of this month, can we recess and close it out on
I'm
the 19th?
understanding, Mr. Bellfield, that we have properly advertised that it would close today.
I understand that. But do we just have to do it today? Since there,
So we're unhappy because we haven't got a lot of complaints, and we want to extend the timing, asking for complaints.
No, in my case, I'm disappointed somewhat because of
very
lack of
happy.
involvement. Okay, I understand.
no, I thought I heard.
I would ask Mr.
Mr.
Wren.
Wren
or
said that
Mr.
he had requests, but they didn't show up and didn't respond today.
Yeah, and to clarify this, Mr. Bellfield, there are decisions that, or appeals that, they've come in, and some came in late. And I think I discussed this with Mr. Boone this morning. We may have 8 or 10 out there that we have responded to their informal appeal. But it was less than the 15-day notice that we give them. So hypothetically, we could get a result back from some of those that would say, we want to take this to the next level, which is the Board of Equalization and Review as you all are sitting now. However, the statutes indicate that if you have adjourned, then we do have to provide those 8 or 10 citizens with due process if they choose to do so or request. And then you would simply hear them. We would schedule a hearing for them at any board meeting you all choose.
Right.
Okay.
To be heard. However, as far as delaying and offering appeals for any new appeals after today's date, it's my understanding, and I certainly don't want to mislead you or misrepresent the statute, but my understanding is that in order to advertise or extend the time for hearing new appeals, we would need to advertise prior to today's date. And obviously, we can't do that now.
All right, I'm gonna restate my request for a motion, and it is for a motion to adjourn the Equalization and Review Board for fiscal year 2017, 2018 at this time. And Mr. Belfield, there is, of course, as he stated, a avenue for these citizens to continue coming to this board, which are the same board, so it appears to be 6-1, half a dozen of them another.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Combs. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Any opposed by a like sign? All right, thank you. And again, thank you for all that everyone has done in this regard. It has been a pleasurable experience instead of complete opposite that we expected some 18 months ago.
Thank you, sir.
I'm on item 12 at the current time.
No, you're on 14.
Yeah, I'm on 13. We have done that. I'm reading out loud. So rather than go back to where we were, I'm going to go ahead and take the break, which is item 15, and then we'll come back together in about 10 minutes and pick up on item 8. So we now stand in recess. All right, I'll call our commissioners' meeting back to order at this time. We were on item 8. If my circle is in the right place, then I'll call on Ms. Nixon. Good morning.
Good morning. Get my things in a row here just a minute.
Which things would be ducks, I guess?
What we have this morning is a consideration of 3 requests for 6-month extensions of conditional use permits that were previously issued for some solar farm projects. They are 3 separate projects, and in just a minute I'll tell you where they are. The conditional use permits for solar farms are considered site-specific development plans by our UDO, and with that comes a 2-year window in which to start construction. And the UDO also states that with a zoning vested right, a vested right shall not be extended by any amendments or modifications without an action by the Board of Commissioners. And then the UDO also, finally, the UDO provides for a 6-month, for an extension that is up to 6 months for a vested right. And also as the permit issuing authority, the board is not required to have a public hearing in order to act on these requests. So what we have is 3 solar farm permits that were issued, that were approved and issued coming up on 2 years ago. One of them has been longer than that, about 2.5 years ago. And these 3 projects are all approaching their current expiration dates for their permit approvals. They're all requesting a 6-month extension. We would extend those, if approved, we would extend those from the extension dates of the permits. So if the permit expires in August, we would add 6 months to the August expiration. So they wouldn't all necessarily expire 6 months from today. What the UDO requires is that the applicant, when they're requesting an extension, they give an explanation or some documentation as to why the project is delayed from the original schedule. All 3 of these applicants have expressed that in their supplementary documentation that the reasons for the delay in construction are beyond their control. They've all cited the process that's involved with getting the power company to review and release, do certain reviews and releases during the application process or during the approval process. You may know that Chris Sandifer, who is a member of our planning board, is also very involved with the solar industry. So I did also call upon Mr. Sandifer and ask him about the status of some of these delays, and he agreed that the process statewide is a little bit locked up in this review. And so it's not just a local problem. It's not necessarily related to these 3 applicants, but it is something that's going on statewide. So I included in your packets the information that each one of the applicants had sent regarding their request for the 6-month review or 6-month extension. And I will tell you that the 3 applicants are Spring Hope Solar 1 and 2, which is down here by Fraser Road and Worth Road. You'll remember this is the large 3-part solar farm. Look like this. You remember that it's 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 pieces. This piece on the south side of Fraser Road is not being requested for an extension. Evidently, the company is no longer looking at that portion of that, so they're looking to extend these parts on the north side only. The next one is Tate Solar, and Tate Solar is located up here by, between Duke Road and Taylor's Gin Road, in that vicinity of the county. This is what that has frontage on Taylor's Gin. And then the third one is Higgins Solar, and Higgins Solar is located just outside of Castalia at Barnes Street and Nellis Avenue. So that's the 3 locations. And I'll be glad to, and they're all just requesting that straight 6-month extension.
Any questions of Ms. Nixon from board members? Mr. Lamb, any questions?
There's no fee associated with this renewal process, right? It's just an extension.
pardon?
Is there a fee?
No, we do not have a fee.
Right. Any other questions? Ms. Nixon, have we had any that we have approved that have expired, didn't ask for it, and that we know are not coming at this point in time?
We do not. We have contacted, we did one of these extensions about 6 months ago, and we had done one other one,
Sure.
1 or 2 others previously. When we're approaching those deadlines, when we're within about 90 days, we try to proactively contact them and be sure. But it appears that this sort of glut or this hang-up in the approval system seems to be affecting everybody's progress. But all of these are intending to construct as soon as they get released to do that.
Okay. Any questions? The instructions are to entertain a motion to approve the permit extension.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Richardson, second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all 3 of them, right?
All 3 of them, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is tax exempt loan for the Mobile Fire Department. Mr. Rogers. Morning, sir.
Good morning. The Mobile Fire and Rescue Department is seeking a tax exempt loan from Southern Bank and Trust. It's in the amount of $180,000. It will partially fund the purchase of a new rescue truck that they are purchasing, and they have asked for your approval per the regulations.
All right, any questions on this request? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
One question,
Excuse me, one moment, Ms. Wells. Mr. Belfield?
is that independent of the county's,
Yes, sir. That certainly does not obligate the county in any manner.
what I'm thinking about, is this mobile on its own?
Yes, sir.
You said rescue.
Yeah, Momire Fire and Rescue Department, yes, sir. Mhm.
Right. I have a motion on the floor by Ms. Wells. There a
Ms.
second to
Barnes.
that motion?
It was Ms. Barnes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
She made it.
I thought it
Or was it Ms. Wells?
Ms. Barnes.
Was
I'll
it?
second it.
They'll save it. Let me start over. I entertain a motion to approve this request for the tax exempt loan.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Barnes, second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Rogers, you have item 10 as well, a fireworks display permit.
I do. We have a request to issue a permit for an event to be held at Rose Hill Plantation on June the 10th. This is a display as part of some other type of event that is being held there. We have reviewed the documents, their insurance, their credentials, and their site plan appears to be in order. So pending your approval, we would issue the permit and conduct the inspection.
All right, any questions on this request? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Richardson.
Second.
There a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. I'm now moving down to item number 17, which is a joint resolution related to the regionalism, hard word for me to pronounce, of DSS. Mr. Boone, good morning. Good morning. And Mr. Hill. Good morning, sir.
Thank you. On May 15th, the board passed a resolution opposing regionalization of children's services in the state of North Carolina, and I appreciate that very much. A recommendation was made that a joint resolution be done by the three counties, Nash, Edgecombe, and Wilson. The other counties were expressing interest as well. And before you, you have a copy of that resolution that would oppose regionalization of children's services in the state of North Carolina.
All right, and that has been passed between us. I saw a couple of comments maybe. Any questions on this request? I hope it's something we can do more of in the future, including the three counties. And this particular one was important because from our limited understanding of what would happen is that these three counties would be joined together. But with that said, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Barnes, second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by like sign? Motion carries, and thank you for your work on that. I know we put it together and sent it to the other boards.
Thank you so much.
That puts us on item number 18, Ms. McGee, which is essential single-family rehab post-approval documentation.
Yes, sir. First, I'd like to introduce you to Mike Barnett of McDavid and Associates, who will be assisting Nash County with the administration of this program. And I'm going to make the presentation, and then we'll both take questions if anybody has any. Mr. Barnett has a BS in Civil Engineering from North Carolina State University. He joined McDavid in 1980 and presently works out of the Farmville office as a professional engineer. He has been Chief Corporate for CDBG and North Carolina Housing Finance Agency Coordinator since 1982. So we're pleased to be working with him.
If I could interject, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I've known Mr. Barnett for right at 17 years. Wooten had done this kind of work for us in the past, but they don't have the staff to do it anymore. And Ms. McGee talked to Mr. Barnett, and my experience with him is he does a great job, turnkey job, and we're happy to have him here in Nash County. Thank you.
If he went to work with McDavid in 1980, he should have good experience in this.
Yeah, does a great job.
Nash County has been awarded $150,000 by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency under the 2017 cycle of the Essential Single Family Rehabilitation Loan Program for Disaster Recovery. This program is funded through the North Carolina Housing Trust Fund, and no county funds are needed to execute this program. ESFRLP 17DR regulations require that specific policies be developed for procurement, disbursement, and client assistance, and these are being reviewed by the funding agency to ensure program updates are included. Nash County has used similar policies successfully for a number of SFR rounds in the past and expects only minor updates to be recommended by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. Draft policies were included for consideration in your packet, and since then we've made a few minor changes, just grammatical, the department name, spelling, punctuation, that kind of thing, nothing substantive. Our recommendation today
is to adopt a revised project budget ordinance to break out hard and soft cost, and to approve the assistance policy and procurement policy, subject to specific amendments recommended by the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency, and to authorize the county manager or his designee to execute documents and reports for administering the program. If you have any questions, both or either of us would be happy to try to answer them.
All right. Questions from board members at this time? Ms. McGee, just because we have several of these things we do, this particular one helps our homeowners do what to a home?
This particular program is as a result of Hurricane Matthew, and it will help with the rehabilitation of homes up to $40,000 for site-built homes or $25,000 for manufactured homes.
Right. I
Want to
remember.
add anything?
I remember it now. Thank you. Any other questions?
Maybe you could just clarify a little bit to everybody's soft cost.
Soft costs are not construction costs.
So paperwork and things of that nature.
Legal fees, administrative fees, lead-based paint testing, et cetera, everything but hammer and nails.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank y'all. Nice to meet you and look forward to you working with us in Nash County.
Good to be with you again.
Action proposed is to amend the project budget ordinance, approve the program policies, and authorize execution of the administrative documents. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw,
Second.
second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Motion carries. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Patsy, have we identified or have some people come forward that could use these funds from Matthew?
We did have a press release, and as a result, we have had some inquiries. We have not taken applications yet because
Okay.
Housing Finance has a specific
Gotcha.
timeline.
Okay.
I have requested from FEMA the procedure for obtaining a list of anybody in Nash County who needs housing assistance. So we plan to take formal applications at the latter part of the month
Okay.
for a few weeks, and then we'll be proceeding. These are different from other ones in that it will be a first-come, first-served basis in terms of applications.
All right, great, thank you. We're now on item 19, Middlesex Corporate Park Capital Project Ordinance. Ms. Wood? Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Okay, this is for an amendment number 9 to the Middlesex Corporate Park Grant Project Ordinance. This does not include the Middlesex Shell Building Capital Project Ordinance that we have. The Middlesex Corporate Park Project Ordinance is being amended to include transferred funds and to provide a budget line for engineering services currently for Phase 1 Water Sewer Preliminary Engineering Grant submission for the corporate park improvements necessary for the Middlesex Corporate Park Center. In March of 2017, $500,000 was transferred from the Highway 97 sewer project from unspent project funds to be used for Middlesex Corporate Park infrastructure. This amendment updates the project to include that transfer of funds as contingency, as well as adding engineering services line of $10,000, with $5,000 coming from the underground power and $5,000 from the landscape entrance line item. Engineering services will allow for expenditures for infrastructure and evaluation services. So if you look at the actual project ordinance, it's this last section under corporate park improvements, and that's where we're adding the $500,000 and amending the other line items to include engineering services.
All right. Any questions, Ms. Wood? Board members? Entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Combs, there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Thank you, Ms. Wood, if you'll stay up and bring forth budget amendments.
Actually, the next item I have
Oh,
is,
I'm sorry, did I skip one? I did. Item 20.
Okay.
Ms.
This-
Ms. Richardson's pushing me up here.
Okay. What I have for the board is requesting adoption of a resolution exempting design services, contract qualifications, base selection process, and designating a design professional. And this is for our C&D landfill expansion project. The staff of Nash County are recommending that Garrett and Moore Incorporated Engineering Solutions be used for design services for the C&D landfill expansion project. This recommendation is based on the years of consultation from the firm on Nash County landfill projects and their history and knowledge of the Nash County landfill area. The fees are estimated to be less than $50,000. It's recommended that the board adopt the resolution to exempt this project's design services from General Statute 143-6431.
All right. Any questions of this request?
What does that mean when you exempt it from the general statute?
That means that we don't have to go out and do a request for qualifications to pick an engineering design firm.
Is this something that's pretty frequently done, or?
Right.
It can be done if the services are less than $50,000.
Okay.
Outlaw, I would say this board does not do it in great frequency, but in a landfill operation, it is a long history of that landfill.
Yeah, I just don't remember seeing this.
Yeah, and it's difficult to change consultants in the middle of any landfill, so you probably use the same consultant for many, many years in this application, and the law allows for that, of course, by this particular statute, if the fee doesn't exceed that. Otherwise, we would have to interview consultants and go through the process we normally do in selection of A&E firm or engineering firm.
Got it.
And we have received our permit from the state, so we can go forward.
We have received it, okay, great. Any other questions? Entertain a motion for adopters of the resolution.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Richardson, seconded by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by like sign? Motion carries, Ms. Wood, and now we're on item 21, budget amendments.
Okay. The following budget amendments are being presented for the board's consideration. The first one is related to cooperative extension services. Nash County Cooperative Extension, the first one is for Nash County Cooperative Extension 4-H to purchase a 15-passenger van. The funds are being provided from three sources. The $13,500 from NCSU Foundation from the State 4-H Building Endowment Fund, $10,000 from a local donor, and $4,000 donated from the Nash County 4-H Club. No additional county funds are requested. That's the cost of the 15-passenger van is expected to be $27,500. Parks and Recreation.
Could I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Sometime in, like 5 years ago, I understood that we couldn't get insurance on 15-passenger vans anymore. Has anybody else heard that?
I have not heard that, but I hadn't asked that specific question.
I just think we need to check that with our carrier to make sure they will cover that size van.
Is it insured under the county budget or
would
under
be.
the state budget? It would be under the county.
It'd be under
Okay.
ours.
Very good point. Ms. Wood?
Okay, the next item is related to Parks and Recreation Department. This budget amendment makes funds available that have already been collected in activity fees in excess of budgeted amounts. Due to the increased signups for team activities and tournaments during fiscal year 17, the county has had to increase expenditure for equipment and sports services to cover the additional costs for additional teams and officials. We're requesting $10,000 for, $3,000 for athletic equipment and an additional $7,000 for sports services. No additional county funds are requested. It's coming from fees that have been collected.
Good problem to have.
The next item is related to non-departmental, no specific department, but all county. This amendment is to budget additional funds to cover unanticipated costs associated with the transition of 365 retirees from the county's self-insured health plan, which ended December 31st, 2016. Our retirees moved to the ACA Marketplace Individual Blue Cross plan. or they were paid, or they moved to the Medicare plan if they were eligible. So this change was due to the state health insurance plan not allowing the county retirees on the plan, only active employees. So we're requesting $165,000 from fund balance and increasing our retiree pre-65 insurance line item by $125,000 and our post-65 insurance coverage by $40,000.
Is that in the range of what we expected it to be when we started this process? I for some reason, remember a higher number.
Well, we already have funds budgeted in 2017,
Okay.
and this is increasing that line item.
Increasing that line item, okay. Thank you.
The next item is for insurance proceeds. This budget amendment is needed to appropriate insurance proceeds to pay for wrecked vehicles from various departments, including the Sheriff's Office, EMS, and Emergency Services. No additional county funds are requested. Insurance proceeds were $15,795, $10,632 going to the Sheriff's Department, $245 to Emergency Services, $4,918 to EMS Services. The next item is related to the Sheriff's Office Court Impact Department. This amendment is to budget additional funds for the EOMP fees, the Electronic Offender Monitoring Program, to support the electronic monitoring system. No county funds are requested. It's supported by additional fees that have been collected, and we're requesting $6,500. Current budget is $35,000. We're anticipating, or we're projecting around $41,500 for expenditures. The next item is under Aging Department. This amendment is needed to reallocate home and community care block grant funds to ensure 100% utilization by the end of the current fiscal year. It's just moving funds around, actually adding back to fund balance $799 because of county match from decrease in congregate nutrition and home-delivered meals. Moving to the senior center operations. The next item is for the Department of Social Services. This budget amendment is to reallocate funding based on state authorization. No additional county dollars are requested. It's moving funds within various departments of Department of Social Services totaling $18,378. The next item is for the Sheriff's Office. This budget amendment appropriates donated funds by the Sheriff's Citizens Advisory Committee to provide items for needy families and other services. No county funds are requested. That's $1,024. The next item is also, actually the first program is for the $1,024 is for the DARE program, and $337 is for the Sheriff's Citizens Advisory Committee. No additional county funds are requested for either. The next item is for the Water and Sewer Department. This amendment is to budget additional funding and expenditures for tap fees. Due to the approved discount for installations effective January 2017 through June 30th, 2017, the Water Department has seen an increase in revenue and expenditures related to the additional signups that were not anticipated in the original budget. To date, I believe it's 40 customers have signed up. I have 30 in here, but we've actually increased it to 40. 40 customers have signed up, but based on prior experience, this number could double. So it could go up to about 60 customers. Additional revenue from the fees are offsetting the costs. No county funds are requested. So we're requesting $15,000 for those professional services. And they are all my amendments that I have this morning.
All right, you presented 9 amendments. Is there any question from board members on either of those amendments? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bellfield.
Second.
Second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on either of those 9? Seeing none, all in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Moving to item 23, request to add secondary roads to the maintenance system. Ms. Dorsey.
Good morning.
Good morning.
While I'm starting off with that item, I'd like to take this time to introduce Mr. Bobby Liverman.
Oh, great.
come up here. He's our new district engineer.
I was gonna ask you in your presentation, ask him to come and meet the board. That's
We-
good.
We did, and while he's new to this position, he's really not new to our district. He's been there as both maintenance engineer and resident engineer. So, do you want to make any remarks or just say hello?
I'll say hello and just, I'm new to the position, so just bear with me as I get acclimated to my new role. But my door is always open and I answer my phone all hours of the night. I have some business cards with my personal numbers and I'll leave them here for you.
Great. That was
Sorry
a
you
very
did
brave statement to say that you'll take phone calls all hours of the night.
Thank you. The one item we have related to DOT is a request to add some roads to the secondary road system for maintenance. Those roads are in Lake Haven subdivision and also Oak Level Crossing.
All right,
I think it's 2 resolutions, but we could probably do one motion for both.
any questions on those resolutions?
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a typo on one of them.
Awesome. Yes, I caught
That's in my
it.
district, so I was looking it up.
All right, I will correct that typo. Any other questions? Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw,
Second.
second by Ms. Richardson, I think, had one letter in first. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Mr. Little, I appreciate you coming to us today. We always work very closely with the gentleman in your position. We've had some good ones in the past, hadn't had any bad ones. You got some reasonably large shoes to fill, but if you've been here a long time, I'm sure that won't be a problem. Your most phone calls that you get late at night is probably gonna be something to do with how high the grass is somewhere in our county, so keep that in mind. But we also depend on you quite a bit to help us with funding of certain things that we will bring forward to you from time to time, as it relates to industrial recruitment, and numerous other things. We appreciate the recent support out at the community college that seems to be, looked at this point in time. Y'all have helped us many times with that as well. But welcome to Nash, welcome to your new position in Nash County.
Thank you, sir, and I look forward to working with each and every one.
The gentleman before you slipped out in the dark of the night. I don't think any of us knew he was leaving, and just got an email one day that he was retiring. I'm sure he knew it, but he kept it kind of tight to vest, I think. But thank you.
I think we ran Mr. Ellis off trying to get these improvements in Miss Richardson district
Is that what it was?
implemented, and we're gonna meet with Mr. Liverman later today to start talking about that.
Okay,
So I'll be calling you in midnight.
yeah. Let's see, we are now on item 23, which is board appointments. Ms. Dorsey?
Yes, and we have quite a few today. First are a couple on the Nash ABC Board, Mr. Wayne Hill and Ms. Ernestine Neal. Mr. Hill has served 3 terms. However, the director of the ABC Board, Mike Murray, has requested that Mr. Hill be allowed to continue to serve until the end of this calendar year to see through the completion of a construction project they're working on Bienvenue Road. And we also have an application from Chairman Davis to fill that position at the end of this year by Mr. Chris Gardner, who would then serve the remainder of that 3-year term. Ms. Neal is eligible for reappointment.
All right, as Ms. Dorsey said, that's a little bit unique request on Mr. Hill's part. It came from who really wanted to serve another term, and I just explained that this board had worked real hard to stick pretty much to our policy of 3 terms as it related to our citizens. Sometimes with commissioners, we may do something different because we all are taxed at the number of boards we serve on. But I'd appreciate you honoring that request, and Mr. Murray also contacted me about it. Mr. Hill is really, who, if you know him, was a very long-term manager of Lowe's here in Rocky Mount, and also a prior building contractor. It is pretty important to finish that construction project. Probably the only board member they have that knows a lot about it, and according to, Mr. Murray, he knew nothing about it, and he was depending on them heavily, so I appreciate you honoring that request. And Ms. Deal, we all know, can serve another term. She's been a great board member, I think.
Are you talking about just for the remainder of the year to see out the construction?
Yes, sir. He would serve, and Mr. Murray advised me that they expect the construction to be completed on or about early December. We just put it at the end of December. And then I brought to the board, as I mentioned a couple of months ago, Mr. Gardner, who is a business owner in Rocky Mount, owns several facilities, including Honey Baked Ham and the Express Loop there on Sunset Avenue. He does happen to be the son of former Lieutenant Governor Jim Gardner, which really has no bearing on his interest on this board, but I think he would be an excellent board member there as well. Appreciate you supporting that recommendation. I'd entertain a motion to approve these two if the board sees fit.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw, second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you, Ms. Dorsey.
Okay.
Planning board members.
We've got three, each have served one term: Sandra Edwards, Kevin Smith, and Randy Glover.
Excuse me. Ms. Dorsey, would you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
Yes, we have three members on the planning board whose terms expire at the end of this month. They've all served one term at this point, and they include Sandra Edwards, Kevin Smith, and Randy Glover.
Okay, I'm going to ask the board if they would at this time to approve two of these and table Mr. Glover's reappointment at this time. There's an item concerning the county that we are working with him on, and it's not quite resolved yet, and I'd like to have to the next meeting to continue negotiations with Mr. Glover prior to reappointing to that, or maybe bringing forth a different board member, if that's okay with the board.
Is that what you're working on? Is that privy to all the board members?
Mr. Belfield, it is privy to the board members, other board members. It's a matter of individual, let me think of the right word to use, business.
You don't have to be specific,
Okay.
but I'm...
It is privy, and I'll be glad to talk to you about it after the meeting. It has something to do with a business dealing with the county of Nash at this point in time, and we would like to get it resolved prior to reappointment at this position, or maybe consider someone else.
Okay.
With that said, if that's okay with everyone, I'll just make that request, and I'd entertain a motion to approve Ms. Edwards as well as Kevin Smith at this point in time.
I move that we approve Mr. Smith and Ms. Edwards, and we table Mr. Glover's reappointment.
All right, have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you. Ms.
Okay.
Dorsey?
We have several members on the Turning Point Workforce Development Board whose terms are expiring, and we reached out to Mr. Michael Williams, who's the director of that agency, to give us some information about each. Mr. Ron Ellis, who has only served 2 terms, is relocating out of the area and needs to be replaced. Mr. Charlie Clark, who served as a private sector member, has served 3 terms. Ms. Collins is a private sector member, and the director of the agency did ask if you all would consider allowing her to continue, as she is chairman, and her term as chairperson expires June of 2018. Mr. Rogers, Steve Rogers, is also a public sector member who's also served 3 terms. He is also chairing a committee on that board, and Mr. Williams has asked that he be able to continue to serve out his term as chairman, which will expire in June of 2018. And Ms. Mary Wells has also served 3 terms. She has been a great member on that board, and he has asked if you would consider her reappointment as well.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dorsey. I think I almost need to take these individually. The first two were not eligible for reappointment, so that leaves us two vacancies, Ms. Dorsey.
Correct.
And anyone have a person they'd like to present to the board this morning for those two, or we need to table those two appointments?
And remember, one needs to be a private sector member and one a public sector member, so.
Right, keep that in mind.
Might need to get some details on, no, both of those are private, I'm sorry.
I think it says both of them.
I'm sorry, both are private.
Right. Is that okay with everyone? Does anybody have a name they wish to bring this morning?
No, Ellis is eligible, but he's moving out of
He's
the
moving.
county, so that leave that vacant.
And Mr. Clark?
I'll work on it.
Okay.
Mr. Clark, I've seen him at one meeting in 3 years.
Yeah, I've picked up all along that he has had difficult getting to meetings, and of course, he's served 3 terms anyway.
Right.
And not eligible for reappointment, and I really think this board should try their best to stick to these appointment limits, simply because we're producing so many people through our Citizens Academy that express interest on serving boards. But there are always certain circumstances that should be considered. But we'll table those two.
Could you provide us with just a little brief summary of responsibilities and meeting frequency and things like that?
I can. I don't have it handy, but I will get that
Sure.
for each of you.
Well, we're going to table those two anyway. Ms. Collins, the request, even though she served 3 terms, she is current chairman. Chairmanship lasts till June the 18th. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move approval that we
I said,
accept her to serve out term, June 18, 2018.
That's June of 2018, okay? Got a motion by Mr. Belfield, a second by Ms. Wells. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Mr. Steve Rogers, a similar circumstance, as Ms. Dorsey said, he serves on the chair of a given committee.
Yes, a committee.
And his committee chairmanship expires at the same time, June 2018, and was requested by the director to have him complete that term. Pleasure of the board.
Move for approval.
Moved by Ms. Richardson for approval. Is that to the June the 2018 date?
Right.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Richardson, second by Mr. Outlaw. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, and Ms. Wells, who has served 3 terms, as I said just a minute ago, I think the commissioners sometimes have to be looked at a little different, because we probably are currently on each individual one of us, maybe all the boards that we can handle. And to start shuffling on that may affect more than one of us. So, pleasure of the board.
Move for reappointment.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Mr. Davis, just a comment on
Sure.
the 2 that are going to 2018.
Yes, sir.
Would it be appropriate, maybe, Ms. Wells, a few months prior, to bring that back to us, to remind us, so we can be looking at replacing these people, because they're kind of mid-term?
It'll show up through this system.
and I've asked
Okay.
Michael to also come up with some
It
recommendations.
shows up in our system, but if you go look at it, but, it'd be like, we would be on that date.
Oh, I know what you're
I
saying.
just want some advance
It
notice, so
would
I
be
can
in
be
order.
looking
We'd
for
be used
people.
to looking at it.
Yeah. We'll both try to get
Just a few months reminder.
that to you.
That's going to require you to work to June 2018.
I know.
There you go.
Somebody will help you.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
I second that.
Okay.
We're going to allow you to make that second, Mr. Mann. East Point Mental Health Board.
Well, as you know, we are planning to, or we're on track to disengage from East Point and realign with Trillium, but I just want to bring to attention that Ms. Barnes' terms does expire June 30th. I don't know that we need to even do anything on that, I just bring it forward. And at the same time, then, the Trillium Health Resources, folks have asked us to prepare to appoint 2 people to their Central Regional Board. And I made some notes in here that board meets every other month. The next meeting scheduled for July 25th. They meet in Little Washington at 3:30 in the afternoon. And they need 1 board member position and then a second member position that would be someone who would meet at least one of the criteria that we have listed in your agenda.
Would you read that criteria?
I will. The first is an individual with healthcare expertise and experience in the fields of mental health, intellectual or other developmental disabilities, or substance abuse services. An individual with healthcare administration experience consistent with the scale and nature of the managed care organization. An individual with financial expertise consistent with the scale and nature of the managed care organization. An individual with insurance expertise consistent with the scale and nature of the managed care organization. An individual with social services expertise and experience in the fields of mental health, intellectual and other developmental disabilities or substance abuse services. An attorney with healthcare experience or expertise, A member who represents the general public and who is not employed by or affiliated with the Department of Health and Human Services as appointed by the Secretary. I think that's at the state level. And the president of the LME or NCO Provider Council or the president's designee to serve as a non-voting member. Those 2 are really not ours to deal with.
Right.
So I think we need someone with those, that meets one of the criteria in the first 6 bullets of the 8.
Okay, that's what I was confused about, Rita. I wanted you to go through that.
They sent us all that, but
Okay.
I think those last 2
All right.
don't really apply.
Board, I think we've all learned in the last 2 years how important this particular position has been to us and requires, even though we are on now a regional board come July, it still requires a significant amount of time, I think, and Little Washington is where they meet. It's going to take a commitment to do that, but I feel like we should go ahead and address, if it's okay with Ms. Dorsey, this particular appointment as a board member. And of course, if someone has someone they'd like to bring today as the second member, we can certainly entertain that as well. And if not, I think we need to take some time and be very diligent in picking this second person, because 2 votes on any board is important, as we know now, and we just need to make sure we pick a person that will make the commitment to attend the meetings, but also that would represent the views of this board on this particular new organization that we're in. With that said, what's the board member's pleasure on the board member appointment?
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Since
ma'am.
Lisa has represented us so well on East Point, she also knows what's going on within the association. If she's willing, I'd like to appoint Lisa Barnes.
Ms. Richardson, did you have a comment?
No, but I thought we was working on this second one.
No, we're working on the first one first, and then we'll go to the second one, yeah.
That's good.
So I have a motion of Ms. Wells, by Ms. Wells to appoint Ms. Barnes, if she's willing. I'm gonna ask her to remove the, if she's willing, part of her motion, if she would.
I'm all about going to Trillium, okay? No problem with that.
I asked her before.
Okay. Thank you. I should
be
have
happy
known,
to serve
should have known
on
better to get between 2 ladies down there anyway. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I got a motion by Ms. Wells, a second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Thank you, Ms. Barnes, for being willing to do that. I know it's been a very challenging job at times and probably has something to do with your willingness to move forward in a new direction that we're all looking forward to. The second member position, as I stated, I think is a very important pick. And if someone on the board has a name to bring forward today, we can certainly do that and entertain it. Is there anyone that has such a name? Seeing not, I would, excuse me,
I
Ms.
have a
Richardson.
name, but I have not talked to the person about it.
Right.
And I think I have touched base with Ms. Doyce on it.
Mm-hmm.
But we had not verified it, but they'd be a
Okay.
good choice, but hopefully our next meeting,
Yeah.
we will confirm it.
Okay, well, that's fine. And as I stated, I think it's important that they understand the commitment and the travel distance and so forth involved in it, because they need to be an active board member.
Yeah, they need to understand
And I
that,
don't know.
yeah, where they meet and the time they meet.
Yep.
And it's every other month.
Right, and everything else on the list, and certainly, Ms. Barnes could help. Of course, Ms. Richardson, you have served on a part or on this board for many years, so you're very familiar with what needs to happen there. So we'll table the second one if the board's okay with that, and hopefully we can work between us in the next, either 15 days or 30 days, whenever you wish to bring it back to get that one done. Ms. Dorsey?
Okay, we do have one additional person who has been brought forward by, I think, Commissioner Barnes to serve on the Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee, and that is Ms. Martha Lewis, and her application is in your packet.
And that still leaves how many vacant?
I think 5.
5, Jesus, okay.
Is that right?
I hope to have one next month.
No, I think we have 4 now, so
4
we need
now.
3 more.
Okay.
3 more.
Need 3 more.
Okay, 3 more.
All right, pleasure to board on Ms. Lewis.
I would move to
One
approve.
question, is that Martha Lewis that lives here in Nashville?
Yes, she just graduated from the Citizens Academy.
Lives up the street here?
She does,
Lives on
her
Queen
application
Anne
is on file.
Avenue.
Yeah.
Her stuff is in your
She
packet.
worked
I'm
the
just
school
thinking
system?
that if it's a Martha Lewis, I think I knew she grew up in 4-H. And she would be a very good appointment because she's very active in a lot of civic things.
She is.
All right, I have a motion by Ms. Barnes, I think. Is there a second? Or did you second Ms. Richardson already?
Yeah.
You did, okay. Have a motion by Ms. Barnes, a second by Ms. Richardson. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? All right, Ms. Dorsey?
And the last one, we continue to have the vacancy on the Human Services Board for the psychiatrist member.
All right.
Do we know in this area who would fit the bill for that? Can we get a list of names?
Right, I remember
Potential
when,
candidates, so if we know any of these people, we could contact them?
and we have contacted.
Oh, you have?
More than one, but I remember at our last meeting when Nash Healthcare mentioned they were having a new psychiatrist, I made sort of a mental note that when we get that person here, maybe they would be interested in serving. I'm not sure who's the best to reach out to them, maybe.
I can try to reach out. I know one other one I reached out to works here, but does not live in the county. So
Okay.
I'm not sure what
And I'm
their living
talking to
status
one.
is.
I'll know that next meeting.
Right. I know Mr. Hill has reached out to one or more. And that one didn't work.
Well, if we're not able to find one in the county, is there any exception that would allow us to have one outside of the county?
We can check on that.
Because we've been looking at this for a long time.
We'll check on that.
Probably in the
psychiatrist
statute,
residency.
what our requirement is there, I would think.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
We are now on item number 24, monthly tax report. Mr. Wren?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's always easy to stand up here when things are moving in a positive direction, and our monthly report continues to do so. So this is for informational purposes only, but I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, any questions, Mr. Wren? Next item, 25, tax refunds, Mr. Wren.
Yes, sir, I just need your approval to disperse those funds.
Entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Richardson, second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, a like sign. Thank you, Mr. Wren.
Thank you.
Mr. Lamb, if I could at this time, I noticed earlier we had a new employee in the audits, and I'd like to ask you to introduce this very important position.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I want to introduce, if you would stand up, Mike. Mike Tolson is our new county engineer. He's a civil engineer and comes from us, from the city of Rocky Mount, where he has been since 2010. Last week, he did work with Derek and has hit the ground running, and we're really looking forward to working with Mike. He's a resident of, lifelong resident of Edgecombe County, and we just want to welcome him aboard.
Absolutely, and I think I've shared with the board previously that I have worked with Mike some in his relationship with the city of Rocky Mount, and I think you'll all find he is another of those special engineers that is a great engineer, but yet also has great people skills, will be great in dealing with our citizens throughout the county as well as the board. That's not true of all engineers. Some of them are so analytical they can't get it out of the level where most of us understand it. But I found Mike to be kind of like Derek in that regard, and I certainly look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you for coming on board.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
If you have a moment, there's one item in our closed session, if you could attend, I'd like you to be present for. Okay. All right, I'm on item number 26, commissioners' comments. Any comments from commissioners at this time? Must be running late. Sure we have none? I just have one brief one. I don't know why I thought about this about 4 o'clock this morning, but I did, probably due to something that went on yesterday, and I'd just like to say how much this board appreciates the press members that we have that attend all of our meetings. Amanda, Ken, and Lyndall in the back. I'm not sure why he chose to start sitting in the back. Told me he needed to take a nap once in a while. I'm not sure whether that's true or not. And Ken, prior to my comments, is the gentleman with you today with you, or is he a different? Mark Cone? Cone, okay, great. Just starting with you?
Yeah, starting with me.
Okay. But I realize that when we try to set our schedules, which has been a lot of meetings lately and has been for a number of years, that we never consult with y'all about y'all's availability. We have enough, and Amanda appreciates that comment, I'm sure, with the family she's raising as well. But we have enough trouble coordinating the 7 of us together at one time, so if I started down that route. But I personally think y'all do a great job of covering this board, and in a very factual way, 95% of the time, which is a great percentage for reporters and press and newspapers. And I just really wanted to say thank you for it. I'm assuming the rest of our board members agree with me on that comment, and I know that y'all have a lot of background work to do prior to seeing something in writing, because once you see it in writing, it's in writing for everybody to see, and it's kind of hard to back up on it. But again, I just would like to ask the board if they wouldn't mind just giving y'all applause for the job y'all do for us. Thank you. Item number 27, manager report.
Yes, don't have a whole lot today. Just we did forward you an up-to-date capital projects report last week. If you have any questions, let me know. Also, a reminder that our July meeting has been moved to the second Monday July the 10th, and instead of the 3rd, since the 4th is a holiday. That's it.
That's it? Yeah. Well, we are well over.
And thank you for passing the budget.
Yes, sir. All right, item number 28 is a closed session that I'll call for a motion to go into for economic development matters, for matters, just like Mr. Belfield, of attorney-client privilege, and for a personnel matter. I'd call for that motion. And did you have a question first, Mr.
No,
Belfield?
I was just wanting a quick comment. I should have made it earlier, but
Yes,
the thought
sir.
came to me.
Yes, sir.
Well, I just want the board members, anybody know that I voted against the budget because I really strongly believed in the request that I had asked us to go along with. That doesn't mean that the budget is not satisfactory. There are a lot of good things in that budget. And I just want everybody to know it, but I felt very strong about the request that I made, and so I just could not say a yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Without them.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Mr. Belfield. Give me 1 second. Do we expecting action on the orders after the meeting? Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure I could advise the press if we expected any action after the closed session. At this time, we do not. I hate to ask you to hang around when we don't expect any, if indeed we should take any. We will ask Mr. Lamb to call you immediately, but I don't intend to, don't see at this time that we would have any. With that said, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Outlaw, second by Ms. Barnes. Any questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. Thank y'all.